Hey everybody, this is Andrew Embler, CTO of concrete5, and today I'm going to show you how you can take an HTML theme that you download from the web and turn it into a theme for concrete5 version 7. If you've worked with concrete5 in the past, a lot of this may be old hat to you, but you might find some interesting stuff even along the way. And further entries in this video series will probably be of more use because they will show you some of the new cool stuff that you can do to your themes in 5.7. So let's get started. First, I have chosen this theme, Urbanic, that you can download from templatemo.com. I chose it primarily because it's an attractive theme that is Bootstrap 3 based. That's going to help us with some of the features that we want to do so that we can get up to speed pretty quickly. And so let's go down here and download this theme. And we'll unzip it. And so here's what we have. We've got some web assets, some CSS, some JavaScript, and then we just have our basic template. Concrete5 has always made it really easy to take HTML and turn it into a CMS-powered site. And 5.7 is no different. So I'm going to open this up in the browser so we can see what it looks like. And this is what we're going to be working with. Pretty cool stuff. So here you can see I have a concrete5.7 site. I installed it without sample content. I think that's pretty key. You certainly can, and then you can clear out stuff, or you can try and design your theme around existing content. But I think it's easiest to work without sample content, especially when you're going to be working on a new site and you don't need any legacy pages in there that you're just going to have to delete anyway. The full sample content is there for those who want to sort of see what you can do with concrete5. And it might be useful starting points for some, but if you're really working on your own custom theme that you want to work with, I would recommend starting with blank sample content. First thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to turn off caching. Caching speeds up concrete5 and is good for sites that are kind of published and ready to go. And for performance, we ship with it. We ship with it enabled, but when you're working on your own assets and you're constantly tweaking files and stuff like that in the file system, it's definitely recommended to turn off caching. So you just do that in System and Settings. And so we're just going to turn off all of this stuff. Make sure that that's all off. And then we should be good to go. So now, first thing we can do, let's head on into our themes section. Here is the one theme that we currently have installed. This is the Elemental theme. It's totally new for 5.7. It's a good showcase of what's possible in concrete5 version 7. And our themes are going to show up in here. So to make our theme show up in here and make it addable, what we're going to need to do, we need three things. First, we need to make a place for this theme in our file system. So here is my web root. You'll notice I have localhost / concrete5701. This is where that maps to. Here's my index.php. And in order to get your theme to show up in this interface, you're going to go into your application directory and into themes, and you'll see an empty directory. So let's make a directory for our new theme, Urbanic. Next, we are going to need a small text file that gives a name and a description to our theme. This is super basic. It's just a text file. It's been there since the very first beginnings of concrete5, and it's pretty easy to create. So let's go grab one from our desktop. I have already created this text file so that we don't have to create it ourselves, but let's open it up so we can see what's in it. First line is our title, second line is our description, and then next, this is not required, but it's kind of nice, a thumbnail.png is a visual representation of what this theme will look like. And as I look at it, you can see I made this already. I just took the home page of the Urbanic theme and took a screenshot and made 120 by 90. Those are the dimensions. And now if I refresh my page, you're going to see I have a theme awaiting installation. So next thing I can do is hit install. You're going to see there are no templates in this file. That's going to be a problem, but we'll come back to that in a second. That's all you need to do to get the system to be aware that this theme exists. And then if I were to activate this theme on my site, I can do that. Of course, if I go back to my home page, I get absolutely nothing. No edit bar, no content, no nothing, not even any error message, although we might change that in the future. That's because there are no templates in this theme that I've activated on my site that content can be shown in. So that's obviously going to be a problem. So let's create our first page template. Page templates in concrete5 map to files in a themes directory. So we ship when we install concrete5 without any sample content, you can see that we create one page template. It's called full. That means that if there is a file named full.php in our active themes directory, that file will be served up when we request a page. So let's make that full page. And you know what we're going to do? We're just going to take index.html that came in our theme, and we're just going to copy it over, and we're going to rename it full.php. And then I'm going to open it up. This is how that comes in. Just as some HTML. And then let's go back to the home page. You can see we've got content, which is awesome. It doesn't exactly match the theme that we're expecting, and that's because we haven't done anything to this markup, and it doesn't know it's in concrete5. It doesn't know anything. It's just HTML that we copied over. So there's a couple things that you're going to need to do here. The first things that I do when I'm doing something like this is I look for all of the CSS and JavaScript that the theme has in it, and I make sure that it is prepended by a method called getThemePath, which creates the sort of relative path to that themes directory, so that I can actually find the CSS and JavaScript files. So let's copy those over too. If we copy over CSS, fonts, images, and JS, and we put that in our urbanic theme, that's still not going to be enough to make this work, because if we view the source, we're just looking in the current directory for this stuff, and our directory is actually /application /themes /urbanic. So we need to prepend all those calls. So let's first find all of the hrefs, and then after that we add this code. View is a variable that automatically gets injected into every page template. It corresponds to the page view class for that current rendered view, and that's just basically a fancy way of saying that this has information about the current theme and the current sort of view state of a page. And getThemePath will automatically figure out which theme is currently loaded, and it will prepend the correct relative URL to that directory. And then at that point on, it's up to you how you want to structure that directory. So let's keep looking for hrefs. These are all links, so they're not that important. There probably won't be any more hrefs that are that important for us to hit. All right, now let's look for SRC, because that Has to do with images, has to do with JavaScript. You'll see that HTML5 shim and respond.js are being loaded here. I'm actually going to delete that because concrete5 includes that automatically when we include the header bar. I'm doing this with the images directory as well. Now, a lot of this is probably unnecessary because this is all the boilerplate content that comes with the theme. So I probably don't need to make this work since I'm ultimately just going to strip it out and include concrete5 editable areas in front of it. But in terms of getting the page to render nicely before I start carving it up, sometimes this is nice to do. And so here I am hitting up the JavaScript that happens in the footer. And now I will save, and we'll see how this looks. It looks much better. You'll notice that everything is working, but this as before, but this is being served through concrete5, which is great. So I am logged in right now. If I go to the dashboard, I would be able to access it. Unfortunately, you'll see there's no toolbar at the top. That's because while I have included, while I've sort of fixed the assets in this particular file, I haven't done anything to inject all the CSS and JavaScript that concrete5 needs in order to include its toolbar. So let's do that now. So first, in the head tag itself, you want to add this. This is a fancy way of saying include the file named header_required.php in the concrete5 elements directory. And that will take care of figuring out whether I'm logged in, whether I have access to view the toolbar, and then including all the JavaScripts and CSS that are required, if I do. As part of that, I'm going to start stripping out some other stuff in the head. For example, the title tag is controlled by concrete5, so we don't want it in here. It's going to be put in there twice. Keywords and description are also handled by concrete5, so we don't need them in there twice. Same with the character set. And we'll leave the viewport in there, although we might strip that out as well. And this stuff is all theme specific, so we're going to leave that in there. Next, we want to scroll down the page all the way to the very end, and right before the closing body tag, we include footer required. This gets included right before the closing body tag. It's where tracking codes can be placed. It's where it allows us to automatically output JavaScript right before the closing body tag, and it is also necessary for concrete5. So let's head back to the page, refresh it, and you can see we have our toolbar, and it's working. If I open up my JavaScript console, I don't even get any JavaScript errors, which is great. Let's see if the panels work. You can see that they do indeed. So this interface works just on top of this theme, really nice and smooth. One little wrinkle that's kind of interesting, you'll notice that in normal, in the concrete5 elemental theme, when I click on these panels, excuse me, the content all shifts over to the left. And same with clicking on the Add Content panel. But right now, the content of the panel is obscuring the content in the page. And that's going to be a problem. I mean, one, it doesn't look as attractive. And two, it's going to be tough because certain areas are going to get obscured by this panel when I open it. And the reason for that is we actually need a div with a special container class to wrap around the entire content of everything in the page. And that's necessary in order to handle all the panels, which need to add wrapper classes around the entire content of your page so they can be shifted in and out. So let's add that content, or let's add that container class rather. So the first thing we'll do, we go into the body, we add a new div tag, we give it a class, and we say C get page wrapper class. And that is that easy. This method is also kind of nice because it will also include a special class for the page type, which will let developers and themers sort of target different page types. We know a lot of themers used to do this sort of by hand. Now you don't have to. It's baked into this method that you have to use. And C, for anyone new to Concrete5, is another variable that is automatically injected into the local template scope. It stands for current page. And let's scroll all the way down, and right before the footer required, we add in the div. So let's try this again. Looks very similar, but when I press plus, everything shifts over really nicely. All the content gets obscured nicely. The animation's really nice. Super easy to do. Now let's take a stroll around our theme. And as I do that, the first thing I notice is that my toolbar goes away when I start scrolling down the page. And this is not something that happens in every Concrete5 site, but it's kind of interesting because it's indicative of the types of issues that you might find when you take HTML from someone who's never used Concrete5 and doesn't have any kind of exposure to Concrete5, and you sort of just try and put that HTML into Concrete5 as is. You might encounter some interesting style-related stuff or JavaScript-related stuff. So it helps to be able to deduce what's going on in these types of cases. So this bit me as I was preparing for this demo, so I thought I would show you how I fixed it. When I come back here, the toolbar comes up, and I figured it had to have something to do with this fixed nav across the top of the page. So I'm going to inspect this element using the Chrome Web Inspector. And let's just figure out where that guy is. Stuck menu looks like it could be something interesting. And see, here we have z-index 5000. I know from working on Concrete5 that the toolbar is set to have a z-index of 1000. So obviously 5000 isn't going to work. And I don't necessarily believe that it needs to be that high. I think we could totally get away with having this stuck menu be set to a z-index of 500. So let's change that z-index. We'll go into our themes templatemostyle.css. We'll open it up. We'll search for 5000, and we'll change it to 500, and we'll give it another try. Much better. Still looks a little weird. Kind of stops at an odd spot, but you now are able to use the toolbar, and everybody's happy. So again, totally not something you'll encounter most of the time, probably, but it helps to be able to know how to approach figuring out why those problems are happening. Most of the time, it's going to be due to some kind of incompatibility or inconsistency with your theme, but it will also be easy to fix. And finally, let's see what we can do to actually make this page editable. I'm going to head back into my page, and I'm going to find some content I want to swap out and make editable. Let's do this welcome section right here. Welcome to Urbanic Design. I'll scroll past the carousel, and I can see that it is right in here. And I've got a container, and I've got all this HTML. Let's get rid of this HTML, and let's add a Concrete5 area. This is the standard code for adding a Concrete5 area. Hasn't changed in many years. And on the first line, we're just defining the name of an area. And then on the second line, we are telling that area to display with content pulled from the current page. And I'm going to refresh. You see my content goes away. And instead, down here, I have a welcome area. Actually, I'm going to remove the container div from here as well so that we get a full width area extending the entire width of the page. Let's edit that area. And there you can see content. Let's drag some content in there. And you can see it's just that easy. I've added content to an area on this page. It's automatically inheriting the styles of that area, and it's working really well. What I would do from here is probably start stripping out content and creating more editable areas, and then investigating what types of content I might put in there. And that's probably a topic for a further screencast. So this has been a super quick start to creating a concrete5 theme for concrete5 7, and tune in to the next video in this series where I will show you how to take this Bootstrap 3 powered theme and start using Concrete and make it aware of concrete5's Bootstrap 3 grids. Concrete5 has powerful support for grid systems in 5.7 with all of our layout tools and our block tools, and you're going to want to support those in your themes because it gives your editors a lot more power and flexibility to how they approach page layout. And that is the topic for next time. So thank you, and see you soon.